Ladies and gentlemen, our final session for the evening is going to be about obesity management and impacts of nutraceuticals. And I request Rohit sir now to shift roles from a moderator to our speaker. And to moderate this session, I would like to invite on stage Dr.Eileen Canday, PH.D. Nutrition. Let's have a huge round of applause for her, please. Over to you, Rohit sir.
I know I'm standing between you and dinner. Don't want to do it for long. This is going to be really short and sweet. So the topic is obesity. And this I consider as a bigger pandemic than any pandemic we have ever seen in the last 100 years. In the last 50 years, the number of obese people in the world has tripled. There is no other problem, there is no other healthcare area that has multiplied as fast as obesity has. Not even bank interest rates. Nothing, not even population. And this graph shows you how global trends in obesity is increasing. India alone has quadrupled obese patients than in the last 5 decades. About 40% of women in India in the age group of 30 to 50 years, which I wouldn't even call middle-aged, young women, have obesity. And about 22% men are obese. And the rate is just expanding. India is also often referred to as the diabetic capital of the world. And we all know that we are actually surrounded by food. I mean, it's a very funny thing, but if you think about it, each time I'm in India, I have noticed when I call a friend or a doctor who I want to catch up with, and I say, I want to speak to you about something, let's meet up. They say, yeah, meet me tomorrow morning for breakfast. Someone else I call up and I say, I want to discuss this clinical trial with you, doctor. When are you free to talk? They say, what are you doing in the afternoon? Come over for lunch. So there's no meeting happening without food. So we are a food-oriented country, and that's why we are right at the top. In the top 5 countries where BMIs are high, we are a country with a very high BMI both for men and women, and this is also actually affecting childhood obesity. So when you talk about obesity cause, this is not unknown. We know what are the causes of obesity. The main cause is the genetics. But for ages, for the last 200 years of medical science, we have been believing that lifestyle can be altered. Drugs can be induced to control obesity. But what we are born with cannot be changed. And our focus in the last 10 or 20 years has been to show to the world that we can actually change the genetics that we are born with. A lot of successful athletes, bodybuilders, and marathon runners have said this in the past, that nothing overrides genetics. And one of a very big influencer, I wouldn't take a name now, I met only about 3 weeks ago, 7 times Mr. Olympia. And I asked him a question that, what do you think? What overrides genetics? If I am born with bad genetics, I have a very thin wrist. How can I make my forearms and wrist look large, big, nice? And he says nothing. But that's not true. He said that because he's a sports person, he's not a dietitian, and he's not a doctor. This can be challenged, and there is a lot of evidence now that suggests that we can challenge our genetics and we can change our genetics. But it's also equally true that genetics have a big role in determining how we look, how we carry on our life, etc. A child born to obese parents is more likely to be obese. If one of the parent is obese, that obesity chance increases 3-folds. If both parents are obese, that obesity chances increase 10-folds. And hence that is a susceptible group that should be especially looking after themselves. And that is not happening. Lack of sleep. We have heard of circadian rhythm, that when we sleep, we have some hormones that are working in the background, in the brain and in the gut. And that's why a night's sleep is very important. It's also important to understand it's not just the number of hours that we sleep, it's the time of the day that we sleep. And hence you've seen that people who work late at night have often seen obesity due to hormonal imbalance. And we'll talk about it in a second. Inactive lifestyle, overeating, we know these things. Medications, and there are many instances where you see drug-induced obesity. Like if you're on long-term corticosteroids, you may be obese. If you're on beta blockers for a long time, that can interfere with your fat and carbohydrate metabolism. But there is little we can do about it. Beverages, sweetened drinks, sugar is everywhere. People say that I'm very healthy because I eat granola or I eat cornflakes in the morning. Granola is 30% sugar. If you have 100 grams of granola, you're getting 6 teaspoons of sugar. You will never have 6 teaspoons in your tea. So it's very important to read food labeling. Everything that appears to be healthy is actually not healthy. And fat is not all that bad. So a right combination of proteins, carbohydrates, fats is very important. And we talk about the micronutrients in a minute as well. I've been talking about epigenetics in different areas of health. I've been talking about epigenetics in pregnancy and fertility, etc. But what exactly epigenetics is? It's a science that helps you write your own life. It's a science that helps you change your genetics. Epigenome is a molecular bridge between your genes and your environment. So what does epigenetics actually do? It involves 3 processes mainly: histone modification, DNA methylation, and microRNA regulations. And when these 3 processes are regulated, we can actually influence the epigenome, change your genetic code or change your expression of genes without altering the underlying nucleotide sequence. So there is no harm. These changes are reversible. So when you're doing good things to your genes, like eating healthy, working out, the genes are going to respond positively. When you do bad things to your genes, eat bad diets, etc., it's going to be opposite. So effect of the genetic effect correlating with lifestyle factors can actually have a big impact on hormones that control your fat and carbohydrate metabolism, energy metabolism in the body. And that's also related, and these hormones are also related to how you sleep. So it's not just how you eat and how much you work out and how much is your energy expenditure, but how you sleep and when you sleep is also very important. They have a direct effect on your genes, and they have a direct effect on these hormones, especially leptin and ghrelin. Leptin is a hormone that is called satiety hormone, and ghrelin is your hunger hormone. And we talk about the times of the days when leptin and ghrelin goes up. Ghrelin is at its peak in the daytime, and that's when you need the ghrelin. Ghrelin is at its peak when you are awake. That's when you want to eat. So if you don't sleep on time and if you go to bed late, the ghrelin keeps kicking in your system. And that's what makes you eat at night. When you have a late night, when you work late at night, you binge eat a lot more than you eat in the daytime. And that's why sleeping at the right time and the right number of hours becomes very important. So ghrelin sometimes takes its peak when you're about to sleep, and you may feel hungry even if you're sleeping at right time, say 10 p.m. You may feel a bit hungry, may feel a bit peckish, but it's a very small, short duration during which you can just mentally control and not eat, have a glass of water and sleep. And that will control your ghrelin levels, because as soon as you fall asleep, the ghrelin level goes down and leptin level comes in. So what we need is your leptin to work in night time when you don't need to eat, and ghrelin to work in the daytime when you eat, consume energy, when your brain functions and the energy is required by all the other organs. And what happens when you have excess food and your expenditure is low? All that fat is stored in your adipose tissue, in your adipose cells, and they lead to problems such as diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular problems, non-alcoholic fatty liver, and various types of cancers that we just heard. So there are many epigenetic markers that actually dietitians and doctors can use to see the difference between responders and non-responders to a low calorific treatment of obesity. Some of these markers are here. TNF is a very common, becoming very popular marker, tumor necrosis factor. DNA methylation of certain genes, the POMC gene, NYP gene, lower DNA methylation of these genes show that your patient is responding to your therapy of low calorific diet. But then these genes work in different way. The POMC gene when there is low DNA methylation in that gene, it shows that there is a gradual reduction in the body fat and weight loss. But if there is a DNA methylation of the NYP gene, it shows that your patient may see a weight loss, but because of hormonal imbalance and because of the genetic code not working in his or her favor, can regain that weight very easily, very fast. So that is the difference. Beta 3 adrenoreceptor demethylation of this receptor can cause obesity in normal individuals. MIR 3659 is associated with dyslipidemia, and CIRC SAMD4 is associated with insulin resistance. So these can be very important biomarkers both for doctors and dietitians in their clinical practice to check on how their patient is responding. And you can clearly see the bad things that you do, unhealthy habits, sedentary lifestyle, and sleeping disorders would lead to disturbances, negative disturbances in histone modification, DNA methylation, and non-coding RNA. And as soon as you pick yourself up and have physical activity, good nutrition, and sleep well, it gives you the positive impact on this. So your epigenetics is back on track. There is a lot of information that tells you that micronutrient deficiency has a lot to do with obesity. Some of the examples are, if you are deficient in antioxidant vitamins like C, D, selenium, and zinc, you are going to have inflammatory response in your cells. You are going to have an inflammatory storm in your cells, and that would affect glucose metabolism, insulin resistance. I mean, you lose insulin sensitivity, and that's how your metabolism gets affected. Childhood obesity. 9 out of 10 children who are obese are seen to be deficient in vitamin D, and this is because of desequestration of vitamin D in the adipose tissue in that child. Similarly, adult obese patients have shown massive deficiency of B vitamins. Because of lack of B vitamins, the carbohydrate in the food is not broken down into glucose, and that's why energy expenditure is affected. And lastly, minerals. Minerals like chromium, zinc, magnesium, and manganese are known to control fat metabolism and hydrolysis. So there's a lot of work going on in this area, but in short, what we need is an epigenetic diet, and a diet that influences your today, and a diet that also influences the next generation. That is, changes your epigenome, changes your genetic code, and that diet has to be rich in vitamins, minerals, polyphenols, and other phytochemicals. Some phytochemicals, like other doctors on the stage have already mentioned, curcumin coming from turmeric, diallyl compounds from garlic, then there are catechins from green tea. All such phytochemicals are very important, and they form a part of your epigenetic diet. So your plate should ideally look like this. It should be a combination of fiber, protein, and carbohydrate in actually that form. It should be like that. More than half of your plate should be fiber. About a quarter should be protein, ideally coming from fatty fish, because then you get omega-3 fatty acids, long-chain fatty acids also, and only a quarter should be your carbohydrates, because you don't really need as much carbohydrates if you're not using them, if you're not involved in physical activity. But we do exactly opposite. How exercise affects your genes is also very important. PGC genes alpha 1 and beta 1 both are involved in insulin sensitivity and managing insulin resistance. Both genes are kicked by only 30 minutes of exercise a day. If you indulge in about 3 hours of aerobic training a week, and if you tell your clients to do that, it really affects the underlying genes that help with insulin sensitivity, keeps insulin sensitivity and avoids insulin resistance. So very, very important. In fact, somebody asked me that what are the things that are core parameters for a dietitian to check in their patients. I would say first, nutrition, both macros and micro. Second is how many steps do they do. Forget about the exercise and cycling and running. If your patient is not committed to do 10,000 steps, just walk 10,000 steps a day, believe me, nothing is going to help the patient. Absolutely nothing is going to help the patient if the patient is not committed to walking 10,000 steps a day. The third thing I would say would be checking body weight regularly. And the fourth thing would be hydration and sleep. How many hours has your patient been sleeping and how many liters of water have been they drinking? If your patient is on a weight loss diet, I would recommend 2 to 3 liters of water every day. It not only quenches the thirst and keep you hydrated, but it actually replaces food on many occasions that you actually don't need to eat, and you eat because you're actually thirsty and you think that you need food. So coming back to sleep, CRY1 and PER1, two important genes that affect your metabolism, are controlled by sleep alone. You don't need any nutrition, you don't need any drugs. These two genes are just controlled by sleep. And the evidence is so clear. If you have one bad night of sleep and you check your glucose levels next day, your blood glucose next day, you will see it all up and down. You will see a disrupted glucose level in your blood. You can see the metabolism affected with just one bad night of sleep. And many of us, because of urbanization and the lifestyle we live, we go for a continuous sleep deprivation. So talking about approaches of treatment, the commonly used drug by doctors to treat obesity, I'm not sure if dietitians are also recommending orlistat, is a non-CNS acting lipase inhibitor, orlistat. It exerts its therapeutic effect by working on the lumen of the stomach and the intestine, and it inhibits the gastric as well as pancreatic lipases. That's how it works, and it prevents fat absorption. But there is also a futuristic view here of using natural ingredients instead of jumping onto drugs. I mean, I'm not discrediting any drug here, but there is capsaicin coming from pepper. It's known to be thermogenic, which means it increases energy expenditure whilst you are eating less. Coffee bean extract, it is rich in chlorogenic acid and also hydroxycitric acid. Both are very important for metabolism of fat and carbohydrates. Catechins from green tea, they stop adipocytes from proliferation and differentiation. And then you have turmeric, you have okra, brown seaweed. All these are rich in fiber, and they help with digestion, and they also help with insulin sensitivity. So the take-home message here is that obesity is currently considered a pandemic, and I said that right in the beginning of the lecture, but it's only because you're surrounded by food, you're surrounded by carby stuff, sugar, etc. Otherwise, it's not a pandemic, it's very much under our control. Lifestyle is very important, and it's up to the patient really. The doctor and the dietitian can do their best, but if the patient compliance is not there, if the patient is going to go out, eat samosas, come back and lie to you that I'm doing everything but not losing weight, just don't see them again. I would say that I see a lot of professional athletes who come and tell me that I done everything you said and I didn't lose any weight and I didn't lose body fat. And I said, that's rubbish. You're lying. And if your patient is committed to walking 10,000 steps a day, sleeping 8 hours, drinking 2-3 liters of water, and managing the macros and the micros, these 4 things, they will definitely lose body fat and have a healthy BMI. So all the data is there. The one thing that is given less significance in dietitian's clinic or doctor's clinic is sleep. And again, if you look at the circadian rhythm, you'll know that the leptin and ghrelin levels are so important. And just without taking anything, any drug, any supplement, if you just start with sleeping more, those hormones could be controlled. Talking about nutraceutical against drugs, we have excellent products with clinical trials, with a lot of data around it. Well Man, Well Woman for general health and vitality, they have been around for 40 years in around the world in more than 60 countries. They're also available in India now. Fantastic products to try because they're clinically tested, manufactured to pharmaceutical standards of GMP. Orlistat, we already talked about it. So there are a lot of treatment options, but as I said, no treatment option guarantees 100% patient compliance. So the balance of the macros and the micros with the sleep and the water can only come from the patient, not from the dietitian or the doctor. And I hope that we can bring more awareness amongst patients and amongst doctors and dietitians to follow these simple techniques and, probably look forward to a world free of obesity. Thank you.
Thank you, Rohit. That was really an amazing and an encouraging talk. In fact, I will not ask you anything about obesity. We have all stalwarts here and people of like huge experience with obesity. What I'm going to ask you about certain things with micronutrients, with vitamins, with minerals that would really help in obesity. What is your take? We know that obesity is a calorie excess. So when we talk about hidden hunger, what would you say to a person who's obese, who's eating excessive calories? How do you counsel them for hidden hunger?
Well, they're eating a lot of calories, but they're all macronutrients. And as we saw in all the previous lectures, our food is devalued. So even if they're taking a lot of calories, they're not getting the right amount of micronutrients. So advice is same, that do your best through your food, but supplement your diet with a good supplement. That's why we have products like Well Man, Well Woman to supplement that. And I'm no way suggesting that it's a replacement for a healthy diet. Absolutely not. But because we don't have all the micronutrients in our food, we have to have that little tablet of vitamins on top of your good diet.
Yeah, correct. When previously, I remember 30 years ago when we learnt in college, we were taught like, oh, you take care of the calories and proteins and the micronutrients will take care of itself. But I think with the changing kind of food that is being consumed today, there's definitely a deficiencies of micronutrients and also empty calories. So there is where the micronutrient deficiencies happen. Now, talking about Orlistat, which even we learned 30 years ago when we were studying about it. How do you compare it to the newer drugs? In the sense, of course, there's a lot of work done on it, but we still talk about Reshape and we still talk about Orlistat. Any take on how would you do it, in the sense what kind of a market would you be able to look at with the newer drugs coming in? How do you see Reshape yet there?
See, Reshape is available in two forms. Reshape is available as an Orlistat drug and it's also available as Reshape Natural, which is drug-free and which uses the next generation of herbs, botanicals. So it's just a choice of the doctor and the dietitian. What do they prefer? If it's a very high level obesity case like obesity level 1, 2 or 3, which is BMI above 30 to 35 is level 1, 35 to 40 is level 2 and above 40 is level 3, and that's taking it towards cancers and cardiovasculars, then I would say Orlistat. But if you're 25 to 30 and you want to bring it down by 5, although BMI is not the exact right measure in my eyes, but that's the most commonly used tool to check obesity. You should actually choose body fat, because some very muscular guy or woman who has very low body fat can have high weight because that's all muscle weight, and he or she may not be as tall. So if you calculate the BMI of that person, the BMI would be very high, but they're very healthy because their muscle mass, lean muscle mass is very high. So I think firstly the parameter is very wrong, and that's where a lot of doctors and dietitian may make that mistake of whether to use Orlistat or what. I would say if you check body fat and visceral fat, organ fat, and base your treatment on that, to the higher degree obesity should be treated with Orlistat, and the medium to low level obesity could be treated more naturally.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm sure, how many of you in your clinics are using a BCA machine, and just show me your raise of hands. Yeah, so definitely I think all these are not looking at BMI and they are looking at body composition, which is a very good thing. Something when we talk about obesity and we talk about multivitamins, I would like to understand that in a bariatric surgery, is there any difference in the micronutrients or the vitamins, minerals prescription when we talk about pre-bariatric surgery, during the surgery and post-surgery? or is it the same, or is there going to be a difference that is going to be there?
It's a very good question. It's completely different because, well, I'm not a surgeon, but I know what a bariatric surgery is. You're making a sleeve. You're stitching something. You're reducing the size of your gut. And if you're doing that, you're basically making your gut smaller in surface area. So that's going to affect absorption of all nutrients. There is no particular micronutrient that you're going to be deficient of. So first, your exposure to food and micronutrients from food is reduced because of the surgery. And second, the gut becomes weaker than it was before the surgery, even if there was obesity or whatever, but then now there's less surface area, there's less enzymes, there's less to work with. And hence, you will be definitely deficient in many micronutrients, especially vitamin B12. It needs a very active gut and a larger area to be absorbed. So you'll be deficient in vitamin B12. It's very difficult to actually get vitamin D12 from vegetarian source. You have to eat a lot of meat and stuff like that. But after a bariatric surgery, you may not be in the best position to process these complex foods. Hence, supplementation becomes very important. And not just B12. If you ask me which particular nutrients should a bariatric surgeon recommend their patient post-surgery, I would also say calcium, vitamin D, zinc, magnesium, and vitamin B12.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sure we have some bariatric dietitians out here, but B12 is one nutrient which you hit the nail right. Especially pre-bariatric surgeries, we don't look so much at B12 because they have an intrinsic factor, and they generally have a good level of B12, even if some of them are vegetarians. But definitely post the surgery, we look at that. Not taking too much of time, I will end with one last question. In daily living, how do you want people to include multivitamins and these nutrients just as a daily living?
Firstly, eat well, sleep well, and exercise, and drink enough water. And when you've done all that, and stay away from smoking, and maybe you can drink a few times a week. But once you've done all that, you should incorporate a multivitamin that has minerals, vitamins, phytochemicals, and polyphenols. If you have all that, you may still need an extra bit of something. So if you ask me what I do, is I would take one Well-Man, which would have everything, about 25, 30 ingredients, and then supplement that supplement with a little extra vitamin C, little extra vitamin D, and these days coenzyme Q10.
That's how you reach 26. So you'll add one omega-3 and then you will add one vitamin C and you'll add everything. I think that's amazing. Thank you very much, and over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's have a bigger round of applause for them, please. Thank you. Thank you once again. Ladies and gentlemen, before we move forward and go for dinner, we have a very special segment where we would like to felicitate all the very special guests and dignitaries who have taken their wonderful time and joined us today for this wonderful session. So one by one, we'll be inviting them on stage and felicitating them. So to do the first round of felicitation, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Rajesh Tavre and Ms. Uma, directors of Meyer Vitabiotics, to present the mementos. I request both of them to please come on stage. Very warm welcome to you, sir and ma'am. And they'll be presenting the mementos to Mr. Kunark Guvarakar, the filmmaker, and Mrs. Sunita Guvarakar, celebrated film producer. Let's have a huge, huge round of applause for both of them, please. Both of you over here. Sir, to please be on stage for the other round presentation, and thank you Rajesh sir and Uma ma'am for doing the honors. I request now Sunita ma'am and Kunal sir to present the memento to Mr. Rohit Shelatkar, Director at Vitabiotics and Nutrition Expert. Let's have a huge round of applause, please. We'll be felicitating our speakers as well. So request, yes, all three of them to please be on stage. Now I would like to invite on stage Ms. Jamrut Patel, Convener IDA Mumbai Chapter, Chief Dietitian, Glen Eagles Global Hospital, Mumbai. I request you also to please take a little center stage so the limelight is on y'all. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, come on, in good intent, good faith, let's have some huge round of applause. Now I request Dr. Nitin Patankar to please come on stage. He's the Director of Wisdom Clinics, Consultant at Jupiter Hospital, Thane, and Consultant at Metabolic Physician at Dr. L.H. Hiranandani Hospital, Powai. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Now I request Dr. Nandita Palshetkar to please come on stage. She's the founder and medical director of Bloom IVF Group. She's also the former head of all national and state organization of obstetrics and gynecology in the country. I'd now like to invite on stage Dr. Rickson Pereira. Is there? Let's have a huge round of applause for him, please. He's the MD, Dermatology, Venerology and Leprosy, FCFBS, Dermatology and Venerology, and DDV, CPS, as well as a gold medalist. I now request Mr. Shiv Shankar to please grace the stage. The Chief Clinical Nutritionist, Tata Memorial Hospital, and he's also the Vice President at Asian Nutrition Society, ANS. Thank you. Now I would like to invite on stage Dr.Eileen Canday. She's PH.D. Nutrition. She's also head of Department of Nutrition and Dietetics at Sir H.N. Reliance Foundation Hospital and Research Center. Very warm welcome, ma'am. We would also like to welcome our very special guest, Miss Varsha Usgaonkar, celebrated Indian actress, model and singer. I will now request Mr. Gopi Krishnan Kesavan. He is the Guinness World Record holder for the fastest unsupported India NS crossing by standard bicycle. Very, very warm welcome to you, sir. Thank you so much, sir and ma'am, for doing the honors. Thank you. Let's have a huge round of applause for them as well, please. Wow, that has truly been a very, very informative evening. We've had some invigorating session. So thank you so much for taking out your precious time and joining us here today. The dinner is hot and very tasty outside. I request you all to enjoy the dinner, and there's going to be a networking session as well. Thank you so much and have a great evening ahead. Thank you.